Welcome to the second part of our new sub-series, One Take, where I have to do an entire car review in exactly one take. This week I'm driving the new 2013 Volvo C30 Polestar edition. Limited edition car, only 250 examples. We have number 248. Volvo says it makes 250 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. Now I suspect it actually makes a little more than that, which is why we've come down to Hennessey in Lake Forest, California to throw it on the dyno to see if Volvo is sandbagging or if my ass dyno isn't calibrated properly. After that, we're going to take this thing for a drive and see how it is behind the wheel of Volvo's funny-looking little hatchback. 217. All right, master of the obvious right now. After putting the fan on the car and running it cold on the dyno, we made 217 horse at the wheels and 259.9 torque at the wheels. So when the car is cold, it's actually making more like 265, 270 horsepower at the crank and probably 280 to 290 torque at the crank. So when it's cold, more power than Volvo's advertised. When it's heat soaked, slightly more power than Volvo advertises, and all in the torque department, which is why the car, to me, feels faster than the advertised numbers. All right, that's solved. Let's go drive. I've wanted to drive this car for a while, and I requested it specifically, and because I'm a fan of the idea of it. I like the unique styling. I like that it's a hatchback that looks a little different from other hatchbacks. I like that it's a premium hatchback. It's expensive, $35,000 fully loaded, and it has, in a lot of ways, the feel of a $35,000 car. In other ways, not so much. Let's start with the interior while we're on our way to the really cool road. It's basically the same as it was when I first tested it in 2009 in here. The R-Design package gives you the upgraded steering wheel, the better seats, and some styling bits on the outside, painted body kit and such. And in here, it's a pretty nice place to be. I mean, the plastics, not as good as they could be. They're a little dated, but Volvo does kind of a good job of making hard plastics feel more upscale than they really are. This is a sketchy pass for a bike, okay. The gauges are really nice and clear, look really well built. The buttons and stuff on this floating center stack are also, let me move this quarters. The buttons feel really nice. These metal materials have a nice texture to them, and the wheel is great. The shifter is, although it's a little small, it feels nice in your hand. And overall, I do have a feel of premium build quality. It's solid. There's no rattles or squeaks, and there shouldn't be because it's a brand new car, but you'd be surprised. One thing I do like about this car is the features. When you shut the car off, a lot of them will stay in the settings that you left them on. They won't reset. For instance, if you have traction control turned off, you shut down the car, you start it back up, it's still off. That's cool. I like that. You don't have to reset the thing every time. You just set it how you want it, and it stays that way. I wish other cars had that. Now, on the other side, there are some really weird things about the interior of the car. It has keyless entry, so you don't need the key to get into the car, but then you need the key to start the car, which is a little weird. I kind of wish they went one way or the other with that. And the 12-volt outlet here, when I plug in my Valentine 1, the cable and the plug are directly in the way of where I'm shifting, and so I almost don't want to use it because it's really annoying. Now, for the price though, there are a lot of other cars that come better equipped. There's nothing in this car that you can't get in any other car for the same money. There's no kind of wow feature. It doesn't have a backup camera, which because of the rear visibility is so good, it's not necessary, but the nav, which is an option and kind of standalone from the rest of the radio, pretty much sucks. And because it has Bluetooth and I now have Google turn-by-turn on my phone, the odds of me using that nav are about 0. Now, even though the C30 only weighs 3150, which is not particularly featherweight, but also not very heavy, it's lighter than the ST, heavier than a Mini, but lighter than the ST, it feels very numb and isolated. Even though it's a manual, and manuals should be more engaging, it's not a particularly good manual. There isn't a lot of clutch feel, there isn't a lot of steering feel, the brake pedal's a little spongy, and it doesn't communicate the road with you as well as other cars. It doesn't really feel like a true driver's car, like I would want a Polestar designated car to be. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're on their way, but they really need to find a way, whether it's better tires, bigger sway bars, some suspension upgrades, they need to find a way to turn this thing into more of a driver's car. The steering, it goes where you point it for sure, but it doesn't really communicate what it's doing through the wheel. And the clutch, it engages the gears, but it does not tell you through your foot how it's engaging. So you really have to get your timing right in your head if you wanna match the revs properly. It's better when you do it slow and deliberately, and the faster you try and shift it, the worse it behaves. And we're heading down a road called Tuna Canyon right now, which I have selected specifically for this. I bring all the hot hatchbacks down this road because it is extremely punishing for a car like this. I set the brakes on fire in the Fiat 500 Abarth on this road, and the Mini Clubman JCW. A lot of big torque coming out of this motor, and what that means is you will get some torque steer. It isn't quite as bad as, say, the Mazda Speed 3, but it's definitely got more torque steer than the Focus ST or the Minis. Yep, a lot of understeer, under braking there. Got some Michelin all-season tires on this thing right now, which are probably not ideal for this type of driving. I might get some stickier rubber. This thing doesn't really like to lift off, rotate the way the Focus. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, oh God, what a mess. At the limit, this car is sort of like the Nissan 370Z in that at 5 or 6 tenths it feels great, but like Chris Harris said, the harder you drive it, the worse it gets, and that's kind of what's happening here. Which is sad a little bit because I like Volvos and I want the Polestar thing to work. I want people to think of Polestar, the same way they would think of AMG or M, and unfortunately, despite the fact that the tune is very good, it's a sloppy mess the harder you push it. I mean, this is not a car that I'd want to bring to the racetrack. It's not even surviving a canyon road particularly well. Now, I know this is supposed to be one take, but I had to actually stop and show you this. When we stopped to photograph the engine, we saw the strut tower brace here, which part of the reason this car might not handle as well as we'd hoped, and it's only part of the reason, but if I can move this strut tower brace by pressing it, and it's moving about 1.5 inches right there, that's probably not good. The biggest issue I have with the car is that I don't know where it stands. You see, it's too expensive to be a standard hot hatchback. It's not engaging enough to be a proper sports car. It doesn't have enough advanced luxury features to be a proper luxury car. And it's styled nicely, but the style has been around long enough that that style no longer makes a statement. People are used to seeing it. I mean, the thing's been in twilight, for God's sake. So it really kind of is in car no man's land, which to me says, rather than calling it a Polestar, they should pretty much just call it middle of the road star. And that is all I have to say about that.